Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from wherever you may be tuning in, whichever part of the world. I appreciate your fellowship and joining me for this Sabbath. I don't usually play the entirety of that song, but many people have asked me about it, and so I thought I would share it with you in its completeness. The name of the song is Let the River Flow. And as far as the band, I'm not exactly sure. It was a disc that was given to me by a lady quite a number of years ago, and so and I downloaded the song to my computer, and I have no idea as to who it is. But you can look it up for yourself. It's called "Let the River Flow," and enjoy it. It's a really beautiful song, and it really sets the tone for fellowship, and so I like to use it for the intro. But thank you again, everybody, all those that have joined us today, everybody in the chat room. I appreciate all of you and all your support and listening to our show and reading our books and the things that and sending your questions. I wanted to cover this particular topic again because we do have a number of new listeners, and I get asked frequently, a number of times, even almost every day really, about this particular issue and about this particular topic. And I know that it is one that is controversial, is a source of contention for many people that are now waking up to the truth and to the reality of what we're dealing with in world, with the different bloodlines, the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And so I'm going to bring forth some information which is not even in my book, because when I published my book on this particular topic, Lucifer, Father of Cain, it was released in April of 2010. But since that release, I continuously find confirmation about this particular topic and this controversial issue from all sources. I'm still seeking and reading and learning from texts that I haven't even had a chance to study yet, and so I'll share some of that with you as well. And I'm going to try to put all of this, bring it all to light in one show, so that for anybody that wants to share this knowledge with others, that you have, even if you wanted to share this with your pastor and preacher, your minister, that it will have a lot of the resources so that people can go study, look for themselves, verify these things. I don't ask anybody to believe me on any of the things that I teach or any of the things that I bring forth. I want you to do your own homework and confirm these things or not for yourself. And then, of course, take it to the Lord, get on your knees, and ask Him to confirm this for you or not. In my life, I have come across many individuals that have been confirming witness for me on this particular truth, and I still every day am meeting individuals and finding others that also share this discernment. And for those that are joining our Truth Network at fallenangels.tv, www.fallenangels.tv, the members that join, I have a profile, a number of questions that we ask just to ascertain where people are in their walk with the Father and in their walk with the truth. And so I can tell by how people answer those particular questions where they are with discernment and how far they have come as far as seeking truth and coming to accept it, because a lot of these issues, truth is not always pretty, not always, a happy thing, and it can scare a lot of individuals, especially for those that have had their whole belief systems, everything they thought they knew, challenged, and finding out that much of what we have been taught, much of what we have come to know and come to learn is false and is deceptive in such a way that it keeps us dumbed down and ignorant. And unless you have this discernment, unless you have this understanding, you really won't be able to come to terms and come to grips with so much that is also veiled and concealed, like what Christ speaks about in the New Testament, where he says that you are Abraham's seed, but you seek to kill me. The synagogue of Satan, they are the seed of the serpent, the seed of the woman, the Canaanite bloodline that had been, until Christ died on the cross, excluded from salvation and eternal life and eternal inheritance. And so I probably won't be able to cover everything, but I'm going to go ahead and go into some of this text. I would definitely recommend individuals that are listening to the show to get a pen and paper, and to you're going to want to write down all these different topics and resources so you can confirm them for yourself. One thing I want to share before we go into the show is another thing that the Lord had confirmed for me. I'm not a Bible code expert in any way, but I did find a website. Somebody sent me a link to it a long time ago, called BibleCodeWisdom.com. BibleCodeWisdom.com. And I had shared many years ago about how the Lord had confirmed for me through the Bible codes that indeed what I was bringing forth in my fourth book, Lucifer, father of Cain, that it was in fact truth. And so I'm going to share with you a link, because I've recently added to this particular matrix and have come to find other words that are also related to, and also brings clarity to this particular topic and issue. So we'll start with this so that individuals can go confirm this for yourself. You can look this up and verify what I'm about to share with you. But in this particular, go to BibleCodeWisdom.com. At the very top, there's a search bar where you can type in keywords, and you can do this in English. You do not have to know Hebrew. You don't have to be an expert in translating the words to get verification on this. This particular Bible code software, which is completely internet-based and found online, you don't have to download anything or, to make this software work. Just type in the keywords for yourself, and you can confirm what I'm saying. But in that search bar, you can type GOAT, G-O-A-T, Esau, E-S-A-U, Cain, C-A-I-N, Devil, D-E-V-I-L, Son, S-O-N, Seed, S-E-E-D, Fruit, F-R-U-I-T, Tree, T-R-E-E, and Tare, T-A-R-E. And you will find all of these keywords overlying the same matrix, and you'll find that this matrix is confirmed more than one time. In fact, this particular matrix is found 7 times, overlaying from Genesis chapter 2 all the way to Genesis chapter 3:6, which is also confirmation that Cain was, of the Tare line, Esau also, and that they are the goats, they are the tares, and that they are the seed, the son, the children of the devil. And the fact that the verses are in the matrix are found overlapping Genesis 2 through 3 is also confirmation that this story began with the seduction of Eve in the garden and their eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which for those that have studied my work and studied my book, eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is what caused them to lose their bright-natured being, their immortality. And it resulted in them being transformed into flesh on what was the 8th day. And it was after the 8th day and their placement on the wilderness of the earth that Satan, the archons, raped Eve and impregnated her with Cain. And it was on this planet, in this fallen state of being, and on this fallen world where we are surrounded by the rulers, the archons, the Anunnaki, the powers and principalities, that they have authority over this world for a short time, for 7,000 years. And so you can also, if you remove a couple key words from this matrix, you can also search death, D-E-A-T-H, and war, which, is confirmation of a war between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And so, like I said, I am no Bible code expert, but the Father did lead me to being able to confirm this through the Bible codes. And so for those that have access to the chat room, I did type the link in there, and you can search other matrices if you like to find out confirmation from the other different things as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go into some of the text and start laying out the premise for what we're going to get into in this particular topic. And I know I've got a lot to cover, so we'll try to get through what we can. Many of you know that I cite also the Targums, which are different language translations for the Hebrew Torah. And when the people were exiled to Babylon and taken there, and they spent 70 years being assimilated among the idolaters of that pagan nation, that they lost their ability, and only the priesthood retained this, their ability to speak and understand Hebrew. And Aramaic and Palestinian were some of the languages that were commonly used during that day. And so the rabbis actually, they had brought together groups of scribes to create what were called the Targums. And the Targum simply means translation. And so these different language translations were brought about directly from the Hebrew Torah. And so here we have, these different language translations that once they were translated into English, they brought to light what seems to be changes that we no longer have access to. And the King James Version of the Bible that has been put forth, it seems to be missing some of this, some of the descriptiveness and the detail that is found within these Targum translations. So I'm going to begin with this first, just to lay it out for you, because these differing language translations are quite interesting in how they bring forth Genesis chapter 4:1, which is, always the verse that people go to from the King James Version of the Bible to try to disprove this whole premise of Cain not being a child of Adam. And I'm going to paste again a link in the chat room so people can study these Targums for yourself, and the first 5 books of the Torah are available in these different language translations. So you can read all 5 books and the different, the different translations of each of these books. But I'm going to be specifically focused on Genesis 3 and Genesis 5, Genesis 3 through 5, and bringing this to light. So, one of the Targums says this, as far as Genesis 4:1. Actually, let's start with Genesis chapter 3, because Genesis chapter 3 in the Targums, where it accuses the serpent of being the one that had deceived Eve, it actually names the serpent, or the Nakash, which we know is the feathered serpent, as Samael. And Samael is one of the Gnostic names for Yaldabaoth, who is the ruler of the visible world. Saklas, Samael, and the demiurge, which Will Rogers and I covered in a couple shows prior. But it says this as far as Genesis 3. And the woman beheld Samael, the angel of death, and was afraid. Yet she knew that the tree was good to eat, and that it was medicine for the enlightenment of the eyes, and desirable tree by means of which to understand. So here it's naming the Nakash as being Samael, or the angel of death. So, skipping to Genesis 4:1 with the Targums, it says this. And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel. All right, let's review what it's saying here in Genesis 4:1 of the Targum translation. According to Genesis 3 of the Targum translations, Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel. That angel was Samael, the angel of death, also referred to as Satan, or Yaldabaoth, Saklas, the demiurge, all the same thing. Even though the Gnostic experts, quote-unquote experts, will teach that Yaldabaoth is Yahweh, or Yahuwah, or Yahweh Elohim, they are completely wrong. Completely wrong. And this verse also is verification of that. And Will and I covered that in the show we did a couple weeks ago. But again, let's review this passage. Adam knew Hava, his wife, just like it says in the King James Version of the Bible, who had desired the angel. That angel is Samael. Next verse. And she conceived. She conceived from her having desired the angel. And she bore Cain. So Cain was a result of that conception and her desiring the angel. Now, the next sentence is a giveaway that Cain was not a child of Adam's. And she said, comma, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. She added to bear from her husband, meaning that the next child that would be born was actually born from her conceiving with Adam, his twin, even Abel. Okay, so there in the last part of the sentence, it says that she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel, meaning that Abel was a child of her conceiving with Adam, but that Cain was a result of her desiring the angel and having conception with that angel, and that is the reason why she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. All right, let's skip down to another one of these Targum translations of Genesis 4:1. Says this, and Adam knew his wife Eve, who was pregnant by Samael, or Satan, And she conceived and bare Cain, and he was like the heavenly beings and not like the earthly beings. And she said, I have gotten a man from the angel of the Lord. This is the Aramaic Targum, or the Targum of Jonathan. And so you see here, plainly spoken, Adam knew his wife Eve, just as it says in the King James Version of the Bible, but comma, who was pregnant by Samael, Satan, the angel of death. So here it says that she was already pregnant by Samael. And then she conceived and bare Cain. And he was like the heavenly beings and not like the earthly beings, meaning that he was a hybrid. He was born of the fornication of an angel with what became an earth woman, especially after they were transformed into flesh. And so, another one, and this is similar to the first one that I had read. Hold on a second. Actually, I only got part of this passage. It seems like part of it's cut off. But basically, it says the same thing. Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. She added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel. Palestinian Targum. So there you have three different Targum translations, which all seem to confirm the fact that Cain was not a child of Adam, and that he was the first hybrid, a result of her fornication with what was. Let's look at Genesis 3:15. From the King James Version of the Bible, it says, And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Genesis 3:15 from the Targum says this, And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son and the seed of her sons. And it shall be when the sons of the woman keep the commandments of the law, they will be prepared to smite thee upon thy head. But when they forsake the commandments of the law, thou wilt be ready to wound them in their heel. So here it says, between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son and the seed of her sons. So the Lord is speaking to the serpent, to the Nakash, Samael, the angel of death, and he says to the serpent, or the Nakash, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son, which is Cain, and the seed of her sons, which Abel, Seth, and onward, the sons of Adam. Now, one other thing I want to touch upon from the Targums before we go into something else is chapter 5. Chapter 5, because we know in Genesis chapter 4, the lineage of Cain is given, and that the lineage of Adam through Abel and Seth, Abel was murdered by his brother Cain, so he was unable to bring forth children, but that the lineage of Adam begins with Seth. So, reading from chapter 5 of the various Targums, they're all similar in passage. It says this, This is the book of the genealogy of man. In the day that the Lord created man, in the likeness of the Lord he made him. Male and female he created them, and blessed them in the name of his word. And he called their name man in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat Sheth, who had the likeness of his image and of his similitude. For before had Hava born Cain, who was not like to him, and Abel was killed by his hand. And Cain was cast out, neither is his seed genealogized in the book of the genealogy of Adam. But afterward there was born one like him, and he called his name Sheth. And the days of Adam after he begat Sheth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. So there, in Genesis chapter 5, which is giving the lineage of Adam, it specifically cites Sheth as having the likeness of his image and being of his similitude. And it also says that they were made in the image of the Word, who we know that Christ is Adam of light. And I explain all this in my books. Now, it also cites here, for before had Hava born Cain. So before Adam knew her in a carnal way, she had born Cain, who was not like to him. And Abel was killed by his hand. And Cain was cast out. Neither is his seed genealogized in the book of the genealogy of Adam. So there, I mean, can you deny that from this passage it very much looks like that Cain was born from the fornication of Eve with the angel of death, Samael. And that is why Cain was a murderer, a liar, and a deceiver, because he was not of the image and the likeness of Adam, who was innocent to evil and only fell because of the sin of their seduction by the angel of the Lord, Samael. And so his genealogy begins with Sheth. Now, to give confirmation of this, and the fact that Cain is excluded from Adam's lineage and also from the lineage of Christ, I want people to turn to Luke chapter 3. Luke chapter 3. In Luke chapter 3, verse 21, begins, this is after the baptism of Christ, when he is fully crowned, and there's a voice, the Father cites how he has chosen Yahushua for this task and this role. But in verse 21 through verse 38, the lineage of Christ all the way to Adam is cited and given. And it goes backwards. In verse, I'm not going to read all of it. You can read it later for yourself. But in verse 22, well, actually, in verse 23, it begins to tell the lineage. I'm going to read verse 23, and then I'm going to read the last one. Verse 23 says this, and Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli, Heli, and then it's going to go, continue until in verse 38, it says this, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the Son of God. Notice, Cain is not mentioned in the lineage of Christ. It's because Cain was the first hybrid, and he was not a result of Adam's knowing Eve. So, let me stop and check the chat room. I'm not going to be able to cover all the questions that y'all are going to ask because I've got so much that I need to cover within the text. And I want this show to contain it also, that you can just share it with others if you so desire. All right, we're going to continue on. Now, to give further confirmation of the lineages and how it was that the Pharisees, as the seed of Cain, how they were trying to bring confusion to the various genealogies, I'm going to read 2 paragraphs from the Kitab al-Magali, which is the Book of Rolls. I'll post a link to it in the chat room for those that would like to also look at what I'm going to be reading from. This is the 6th book of Clement, one of the secret books of Clement. All right. And I'm going to begin with a passage in the first paragraph, and then we're going to go to the very last part of this book, which cites the genealogies. But listen to this. 20 years after he had taken me as his disciple, he brought me together with my father and my mother, who was called Metrodora, and committed to me all the mysteries which he had been given by our Lord Jesus the Christ on the Mount of Olives. At that time, the rest of the apostles and all the believers had a struggle with the unbelieving Jews, because the Jews were killing every one of the believers whose murder was possible to them. I and my gracious teacher Simon encompassed some of the countries, and we met with great trouble from the controversy of the Jews and their questioning about the genealogy of the pure Mary. For their saying about her was that she was not of the children of Judah, that they might invalidate by the coming of our Lord the Christ into the world, and his incarnation from her. They were increasing their bribe of money and other things to the Greeks and the Romans, that they might help them in the destruction of the believers and the bringing to naught of their business, and hinder the apostles from the reading of the law, lest they should teach out of it about the state of mankind and how it was in the beginning. When I saw in what misery we were with the Jews, I sought from my gracious teacher that he would make known to me how mankind were at the beginning, and that he would make me perfect about the reasons, for he had learned everything from the Lord Jesus the Christ. And I was acquainted with the tongue of the Greeks and their books, and was learned in their mysteries, and I had deposited their secrets which had been entrusted me. In my 2 books called the 7th and the 8th, I informed my teacher what I conjectured about the envy towards the Lady Mary, and my anxiety at the reproach of the Jews to me that I did not understand the Torah, and their much questioning of me about the creation of our father Adam, and what I had heard with my ears of their insult to the Lady Mary, and their fiction about her without any resource being possible for me, how I should refute them in regard to their hateful saying. Okay, just to sum up what Clement is saying here. Oh, I'm going to read one more sentence, and then we'll touch upon this. Teacher was moved by my excitement and zeal, entered him when I told him about it. He said, I will put in order for thee, O my son, as thou hast asked me about it, and will initiate thee in things since the beginning of the creation, and will teach thee the genealogy of the mother of mercy, Mary the pure, and its authenticity, and that without doubt she is of the lineage of Judah, the son of Jacob, and his tribe. Okay, so here, what Clement is speaking about is that the Pharisees, the Jews that Christ accuses as being of Abraham's seed but seeking to kill him, that these Jewish people were seeking to cause confusion in the genealogies to nullify that Christ had in fact come of the line of Adam's line through Seth, and that he was born of Mary, and that Mary was of the line of Judah, because they knew that the Savior was going to come of the line of Judah. And so Clement is speaking about how it was that the Pharisees, the synagogue of Satan, how they were trying to hide the fact that Christ was born of this sacred line, and that he was the fulfillment of the prophecies that said that the Savior would be born of the line of Adam, or the seed of the woman. And so, in the very last chapters of this book, it gives the entire lineage in an incredible fashion, because here it also, in this genealogy, in this particular book, it also speaks about the women that each one of the patriarchs married and the children that were begat from that marriage. Most of the lineages and the genealogies only cover the men and the patriarchs that led to the firstborn sons of those patriarchs. But this genealogy cites all of the women as well and their children. So it's a very, very complete and profound genealogy, and it's to verify again that Christ would be born of the line of Adam, and how it was that Cain is excluded from this particular line. And I'm not going to read all of that, the beginning of the genealogies, but I'll just read a little bit to give you an idea. It says this: the beginning of genealogies. Adam begat Seth. Seth married Achlama, sister of Abel, and by her begat Enos. Enos married a woman called Hittah, daughter of Mahuuma of the sons of Har, son of Seth, and by her begat Canaan. Canaan married Cherith, daughter of Kershom, son of Mahalalel, and by her begat Mahalalel. Mahalalel married Teshhabrufar, daughter of Enos, and by her begot Yared. See, and you can read all the rest of it. I don't want to run out of time, so I'm going to try to cover what I can. So, now I'm going to read another story, which is a book most have not studied about or read from. It's called the Colbrin Bible, which was released in 2006. This Colbrin Bible is secret teachings that go back, I can't even tell you, to the beginning. These texts are very profound. They're written from the perspective of the Egyptian and the Celtic priesthood. But in that particular text, I found this particular passage. It says this: part of this was given to Maeva, and the rest was drunk by the Yoslings from their offal and cattle during their night rites. When the morning came, they were all smitten with the grievous pains, and before the sun set that day, all the younglings were stricken with a sickness such as they had not known before. Maeva took what had been given to her, and finding Dadam laid low in his bed, gave him a draught from her vessel. And though she had to use womanly wiles to get him to drink, she drank the remainder, and they both slept. But when they awoke in the morning, both were suffering pains, and this was something they had not known before. Dadam said to the woman, "What have you done? For what has happened to us cannot be unless the things which are forbidden have been done." The woman replied, "Lord, I was tempted and I fell. I have done that which is forbidden and unforgivable." Dadam said, "I am bound by duty to do certain things, but first let us go into the geyser to the place called Beth Kelchris, where I will seek enlightenment." And so they went there together and stood before the shrine beneath the tree of wisdom. There they were filled with an inflowing vision, seeing themselves as they were and as they should have been. They were ashamed, he because he had not followed the proper path of a man, and she because of her falsity. There, in the reflecting mist, the contamination of the woman was revealed, and the man's heart shriveled within him like a flower licked by flame. Then they saw a great spirit being. Oh, sorry, I lost my place. Then they saw a great spirit being materializing in the reflecting mist, and he said to them, "Woe to you and your house, for the greatest of evils has befallen the race of the children of God, and it is defiled. The heritage of Kadamampa is lost. The fetid flow defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling, but it is not all. For sickness and disease are also generating from the ferments of this impure implantation." So just to touch upon two different pieces, that once they go before this great spirit being, it says there in the reflecting mist, the contamination of the woman was revealed. That contamination is her being pregnant with Cain. It also says this: the fetid flow defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling, but it is not all, for sicknesses and diseases are also generating from the ferments of the impure implantation. Now, what this particular text is speaking about is after Adam and Eve are transformed into flesh, placed on the wilderness of the earth on the 8th day, that she was raped after drinking of this draught. They passed out, and she was raped and impregnated with Cain. She was raped by the archons, which is also cited in the Nag Hammadi codices, and I explain all that in my latest book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here. And I talk about the fall, the 6-day fall, which caused us to lose our bright nature and to end up in the flesh, and that this transformation occurred on the 8th day. And that particular story is covered in detail in the Nag Hammadi codices. This story from the Colbrin Bible is confirmation of that which is brought out in the codices. And so, Dadam says, "The fault is with the woman, wherefore should I suffer?" The spirit being replied, "Because you two are now as one. The cankerworms, the disease, and sickness strike both equally, but you shall not again defile this place. Henceforth, the misty veil becomes an impenetrable barrier, severing our two realms from each other. so they can no longer be easily spanned. Between us there will now be no means of communication. All right. So, now we're going to go into another passage. This is from the Gospel of Philip. And this is one of those passages from the Nakamoto Codices which gives confirmation of everything that I brought forth in my fourth book, Lucifer, Father of Cain. And for those that have discernment that can understand this one particular passage, there's no denying this. I mean, there's no other way to explain this passage that I'm about to go into. It says this: first, adultery came into being. Afterward, murder. He was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent, and so he became a murderer. Just like his father, he killed his brother. Indeed, every act of sexual intercourse which has occurred between those unlike one another is adultery. The Gospel of Philip. I actually need to look this up real quick because we're missing one part. So give me just a minute to pull this passage in its completeness. It won't take me long at all. I hope that everybody is enjoying the show so far. Here we go. All right. And I know, I want to say this also, that no matter what you think about this particular teaching and which side of the fence you're on as far as Cain being a child of the serpent or a child of Adam, that it should have no bearing on how we treat each other, and that we shouldn't criticize and bicker at one another, because this really has no bearing on salvation. Whether you think of it one way or the other, has no bearing on salvation, and it should not cause such animosity that people are hostile to each other. And that's the experience that I've found in bringing forth this information, is that I've received a lot of hostility in bringing forth this truth. All right, I found the passage. This is from the Gospel of Philip. It says this: he who has been created is beautiful, but you would not find his son's noble creations. If he were not created, but begotten, you would find that his seed was noble. But now he was created, and he begot. What nobility is this? First adultery came into being, afterward murder. He was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. And so he became a murderer just like his father, and he killed his brother. All right. The way that the Gnostic experts teach this particular passage is they say, he who has been created is beautiful. They say that this is Adam. But they are completely missing what this particular passage is speaking about, because it's not speaking about Adam here. He who has been created is beautiful. This created one is Lucifer, Satan, Samael, who was an angel of the Lord that was created as a son of God and not as a son of man or seed of the woman. And this is the only way you can explain this for this passage to make sense. Next sentence: but you would not find his son's noble creations. Why would you not find his son's noble creations? It's because he was not of the seed of the woman. He was not supposed to have children from the seed of the woman. And that's why his children became hybrid, evil beings. Next sentence. If he were not created, meaning if he was not an angel, but begotten like the seed of the woman or the children of humanity, you would find that his seed was noble. So it says in this next line, if he were not an angel, but actually begotten of regular humans, that his seed would have been noble, because he would have, as human, he would have been. It would have been fine for him to have children from women and to give birth to children. Next line. But now he was created, meaning that he was not a child of humanity, but an angelic being. And he begot. What nobility is this? So it's saying here that when he begot his own children, that they were not noble. All right, now, here's the key. First, adultery came into being. Afterward, murder. Remember in the Targum, Genesis 4:1, where it says that Eve had desired the angel and that she had conceived from this desiring of the angel? That was adultery. That was the first adultery. Because Adam was supposed to be begotten, Eve was supposed to be begotten to Adam, and she was not supposed to lust after and to have children from fornication with these angels. So, first, adultery came into being. That was Samael seducing Eve. Afterward, murder. How is it? Why is it afterward murder? Because Cain was born from that adultery, and he murdered his brother. Next line. And he was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. That's Cain. There's no other one that it fits to. He was begotten in adultery, the seduction of Eve by Samael. He was a child of the serpent. He was a child of the serpent. He was the first hybrid being. And so he became a murderer just like his father. Yes, Satan is a murderer. And that's why Cain also was a murderer, a liar, and a deceiver. Because he had the similitude and the likeness of Samael, the angel of death. Unlike Abel and Sheth, who were like Adam. So there you go. I'll post the link to this particular scripture also in the chat room. You can go and verify it for yourself. There's the link. All right, continuing. All right. Another passage, just to give you a couple more from the Nag Hammadi Codices, which also give verification of this. From the Valentinian exposition, it says this. Therefore he acquired sons who angered one another, and Cain killed Abel his brother, for the demiurge breathed into them his spirit. And there took place the struggle with the apostasy of the angels and mankind, those of the right with those of the left, those in heaven with those on earth, the spirits with the carnal, and the devil against God. Now we know Christ speaks about in Matthew chapter 13 the parable of the wheat and the tares. And the wheat and the tares are the same thing as the left and the right, the goat and the sheep. the devil against God. So it's the same thing. One other, from the Apocryphon of John, which is the secret book of John, which I will be covering some of that text in Wednesday's broadcast, because this is one of those texts that was given to the apostles after the resurrection of Christ in the lost 40 days. Now, up to the present day, sexual intercourse continued due to the chief archon, and he planted sexual desire in her who belongs to Adam, and he produced through intercourse the copies of the bodies and inspired them with his counterfeit spirit. All right, now we're going to go into some other passages. I'll try to read what I can. This is from the Kebra Nagas. The Kebra Nagas, the Glory of Kings, says this, which is an Ethiopic text. The raping of Eve is what led to the birth of Cain, as Adam knows immediately that Cain is of ill temperament. And at that sorrowful moment, Cain was born. And when Adam saw that the face of Cain was ill-tempered or sullen, and his appearance evil, he was sad. So again, this is confirmation of not only the Nag Hammadi Codices, the Colbrin Bible, but also of my book, Sons of God, where I speak about how it was that once their bodies are transformed into flesh on the 8th day, that as the Nag Hammadi Codices state, Eve was raped by the archons and impregnated with Cain. And that the chief angel that did this was Samael, Satan, the angel of death. So there, another confirmation. Another one, this is a little bit different, because this one actually cites Lilith as being the mother of Cain. But, I don't agree with this, but I'm just going to cite it anyways, just to give you, this particular passage as well. It says this: 8 times since our leaving the garden had the moon become new, when a son was born unto my wife Lilith. We all rejoiced at this appearing, and on the 8th day, when I dedicated him unto Jehovah, I called him Cain. For, said I, we have gotten a man from Jehovah. Nevertheless, the countenance of my son Cain was not like unto ours, for he seemed to have the mark of the Satans upon him, although this was not clearly visible to the outward eye. And that's from the Generations of Adam, chapter 4. All right, continuing. This is a interesting passage. I'm going to read this. For 130 years, Adam kept separate from his wife and did not beget. After Cain killed Abel, Adam did not want to copulate with his wife. Rabbi Yosef said, from the hour in which death was decreed upon him and upon the whole world, he said, why should I beget children for terror? And instantly separated from his wife. And 2 female spirits, Lilith and Nama, would come and copulate with him and bear children, and those whom they bore are the evil spirits of the world, who are called the plagues of mankind. Kind of interesting. Continuing. It says this: and they led the sons of man astray, and dwell in the doorway of the house, and in the cisterns, and in the latrines. But if the holy name Shaddai was supernatural crown was found in the doorway of a man's house, they all flee and go away from there. And we have learned that in the hour in which man descended to the earth in the supernal image, in the image of the Holy One, and the higher and lower beings saw him, they all approached him and proclaimed him king over this world. After the serpent mounted Eve and injected filth into her, she gave birth to Cain. From thence descended all the wicked generations in the world. And the abode of the demons and spirits from there and from his side. Therefore, all the spirits and demons have one half from man below, and the other half from the angels of the supernal realm. Thereafter, Adam begot on those spirits daughters who are the beauty of those above and those below. This is from the Zohar. Zohar 3, 76b through 77a. Notice it said that after the serpent mounted Eve, injected filth into her, she gave birth to Cain. From thence descended all the wicked generations in the world. So all of the wicked, evil people, the seed of Cain, or the seed of the serpent, that they are the demons. They are the demons. And the reason they're demonic is because they have no part in salvation. And one half of them were from the man below, the other half from the angel of the supernal realms. All right. To give verification of this particular passage, we're going to go from another text called the Protevangelion of James, which is a very interesting text. It says this: Now it was the 6th month with her, and behold, Joseph came from his building. He entered into his house and found her great with child. He smote his face and cast himself down upon the ground on sackcloth and wept bitterly, saying, With what countenance shall I look unto the Lord my God? And what prayer shall I make concerning this maiden? For I received her out of the temple of the Lord my God a virgin, and have not kept her safe. Who is he that hath ensnared me? Who hath done this evil in mine house, and hath defiled the virgin? Is not the story of Adam repeated in me? For as at the hour of his giving thanks, the serpent came and found Eve alone, and deceived her. So hath it befallen me also. Okay. This is the story of Joseph after he had received Mary as a betrothal. He was already a widowed man, late in his 50s, 60s. He already had adult children. And he was chosen by the Father to be the caretaker of Mary, who was a 14-year-old virgin, whom he had just received out of the temple of the Lord. She had been brought up in the temple. She wanted to remain a chaste virgin, and she refused to marry. And so that's why she was given to Joseph to be her caretaker. Now, Joseph says in this story, he goes out and for 6 months, and he is doing his building. He's a carpenter. He's out building houses and doing his work. He comes back after 6 months, and he finds her with child. He can tell that she is pregnant. And he says, Who hath done this evil in mine house, and hath defiled the virgin? This is the key. Is not the story of Adam repeated in me? For as at the hour of his giving thanks, the serpent came and found Eve alone and deceived her. So hath it befallen me also. So this is giving confirmation of what the Zohar just said, and also what the Colbrin Bible says, and also what the Targum say, where it says that after the serpent mounted Eve and injected filth into her, she gave birth to Cain. So here, all of these various books, which, you know, those that want to keep this truth from you. They call all these different texts heretical so that you won't know the truth of the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And in that way, you don't know about the war that is going on this planet, and the fact that the sons of Cain are the ones that are sitting on the thrones of the world today, and how it is that all these bloodlines are connected. Queen Elizabeth, she's related to George Bush, to Dick Cheney, to Barack Obama, to John McCain, to Sarah Palin. They're all from the same bloodlines. 43 of the 47 presidents that have sat on in the presidency of the United States are of the same bloodline. They are the synagogue of Satan that say they are Jews but are not. So unless you have this discernment, you don't even realize that these people, they don't worship Yahweh, Yahuwah, the Father, the Creator, nor do they give the worship and praise to the Son, the only begotten. They worship their father, the devil, and they are of their father, the devil, as is spoken by Yahushua, which we'll go into that next because I'm running out of time. And I apologize that I'm not keeping up with everything that's written in the chat room. I'm trying to, bring this information to you and to summarize it so that it will all be in one show. You can just share this one show with your pastor, preacher, minister, or whoever it is you want to bring this information and knowledge to. All right. A couple other passages from the Talmud, which also gives confirmation of this. For when the serpent came upon Eve, he injected lust into her. This is from Shabbat 146a, the Jewish Talmud. When the serpent copulated with Eve, he infused her with lust. This is Yebomoth, Yebamoth, 103b, the Jewish Talmud. One other passage from the Zohar. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, more subtle, that is, toward evil, than all the beasts, that is, the idolatrous people of the earth. For they are the children of the ancient serpent which seduced Eve. That's from Zohar 1:28b, the Jewish Kabbalah. Now, we're going to go into what Christ said. He said this: I know you are Abraham's seed, yet you seek to kill me, because my word finds no place in you. I say the things which I have seen with my father, and you also do the things which you have seen with your father. They answered him, Our father is Abraham. Jesus said to them, If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. Abraham didn't do this. You do the works of your father. They said to him, We were not born of sexual immorality. We have one Father, God. Therefore, Jesus said to them, If God were your Father, you would love me, for I came out and have come from God. For I haven't come of myself, but he sent me. Why don't you understand my speech? Because you cannot hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and doesn't stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks on his own, for he is a liar and its father. But because I tell the truth, you don't believe me? Which of you convicts me of sin? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. For this cause you don't hear, because you are not of God. John chapter 8, verse 37 through 47. And this is confirmation from Christ, who also, like I said, gives verification of this in Matthew chapter 13. This is also confirmation of John 3:12, where it says, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. To give also further confirmation that the Canaanites had been excluded from salvation before Christ died on the cross, and then extended eternal life to the Gentile nations, the pagan nations, and to the seed of Cain. That, the Canaanites, that if you're born into the Illuminati families, you're of the seed of Cain, you have chance for redemption because Christ died on the cross for you, just as he died on the cross for me. Zechariah 14. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord and of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seeth therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. All right, I know I'm running out of time. I'm not even going to be able to cover all of what I wanted to. But further confirmations, Genesis chapter 12, where it speaks of, O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. When he's saying, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because ye build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourself that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers. How can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel, beginning with Abel, that was Cain, unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Berechiah, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. I'm not going to read just two other passages which also verify that Lucifer has children. One is Isaiah chapter 14. It says this, thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant, and son and nephew, saith the Lord. That's from Isaiah chapter 14, which everybody knows that particular passage is about Lucifer. Oh, goodness. I'm not going to be able to cover all this. A real quick parable from the book of Enoch, chapter 85, says this. And Enoch lifted up his voice and spake to his son Methuselah, to thee, my son, will I speak. Hear my words. Incline thy ear to a dream vision of thy father. Before I took thy mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came forth from the earth, and that bull was white. And after it came forth a heifer, And along with this latter came forth 2 bulls, one of them black and the other red. And that black bull gored the red one and pursued him all over the earth. And thereupon I could no longer see that red bull. But that black bull grew, and that heifer went with him. And I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. And that cow, that first one, went from the presence of that first bull in order to seek that red one, but found him not, and lamented with a great lamentation over him, and sought him. And I looked till that first bull came to her and quieted her, and from that time onward she cried no more. And after that she bore another white bull, and after him she bore many bulls and black cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull